Have you ever stood in the quiet stillness of your garden, gazing at a mountain of fallen leaves, feeling a heavy sigh rise in your chest? It is a familiar weariness shared by millions who tend the earth, facing the prospect of taking up a heavy pitchfork, bending their back to turn that dry, lifeless debris from one week into the next. The sweat soaking your shirt, the dull ache running down your spine, all to cling to a weary promise preached by modern gardening manuals. But if you just wait half a year, or perhaps a full turn of the seasons, these leaves will magically transform into rich humus. But reality is often far less forgiving. After months of weathering the frost and the wind, long after your patience has run dry, that pile remain stubborn, and perhaps only heavier and matted together. And in that very moment, when your discouragement reaches its peak, the agricultural chemical industry steps forward with a triumphant smile. They parade flashy branded bottles before your eyes, offering expensive packets of industrial microbes, whispering a sweet lie into your ear, that nature has grown too old and too slow. Without the intervention of synthetic compounds born in a laboratory, your soil will forever remain impoverished, and composting will always be a grueling torment. They want us to believe that mankind must pay to buy back the very cycles of creation. But today, let the stillness guide us toward a different truth. Together, we will strip away the illusions of commercial agriculture and unveil a primal ecological mastery, a quiet art that sustained generations of traditional farmers and communities living entirely off the grid, long before chemical fertilizers ever stained the earth. Imagine stepping out into your backyard on a crisp, dew-kissed morning. The air carries the earthy, damp fragrance of the night. You bring no pitchfork, no weariness. In your hands is simply a home-brewed elixir, crafted from humble kitchen scraps once destined for the discard pile. You gently pour this stream over the stubborn leaves, and then a colossal biological mechanism is awakened. Without the endless back-breaking labor of turning the pile, without spending a single penny on chemical conglomerates, that dry mass begins to generate heat. It collapses upon itself, slowly surrendering to become a mound of pitch-black, friable biological humus, pulsing with fierce, microscopic life. To truly comprehend this natural miracle, we cannot search for answers in the aisles of an agricultural supply store. We must take a step back and journey deep into ancient, untouched primeval forests. In the majestic silence of the old-growth woods, as autumn arrives, towering, ancient trees shed millions of tons of leaves onto the forest floor. Yet, is there anyone in the forest wielding a rake? Does anyone bring out hollow plastic compost bins to contain them? And surely, not a single creature rushes out to purchase synthetic microbes to drench the forest floor. Nature, in her flawless wisdom, has already established a network of indigenous microorganisms, Venus, yet incredibly disciplined. These invisible entities work tirelessly in the damp shadows, secreting natural enzymes to tear apart, crush, and digest that massive volume of plant debris. They transform the decay of one tree into a profound mother's milk that will nourish tens of thousands of other lives. The secret I am about to share with you is the art of capturing that quiet, fervent energy of the old-growth forest, bringing it home and cultivating it right within the humble glass jars sitting in the corner of your farmhouse kitchen. By the way, as we immerse ourselves in the story of the ancient forest and its fallen leaves, I find myself curious about the natural portrait just outside your own window. Right now, what kind of leaves are blanketing your garden? Are they rigid, leathery oak leaves, broad shade leaves, or perhaps the sharp, stubborn needles of a pine tree. Have you ever applied a traditional composting method passed down from your grandparents and witnessed its quiet magic? Let us pause for a beat. Sip your tea and generously leave a few words in the comments below about the patch of earth you tend. In this space, every rustic story from every corner of the world is a precious stone, helping us build a community that deeply understands and reveres Mother Earth. Returning to the art of harnessing microbes, our story takes us back in time to meet the pioneering masters of the natural farming movement. These were men and women who rejected the shackles of chemical dependency. They quietly knelt on the damp earth to breathe in the scent of leaf mold, observing the flow of life with keen, knowing eyes. They realized that the key to true fertility was not forged in factories billowing thick black smoke, but rested in the indigenous microbial workforce slumbering in the wild. Through stillness and observation, they distilled an unbelievably simple formula to trap, propagate, and amplify the power of these microscopic warriors. And what is the most beautiful part of this legacy? They did not package it into a commodity. They shared it freely with farmers who were struggling beneath the crushing weight of agricultural supply costs. When this home-brewed elixir, crafted from nothing more than rice and milk for a few meager pennies, began to prove its staggering power out in the fields, threatening to topple the profitable empires of synthetic fertilizers, it was heavily ridiculed. It was branded as anti-science. But the truth of nature is much like water. It always finds a way to flow, to permeate, and to endure. Today, we will reclaim that heritage. We will transform our gardens into self-sufficient sanctuaries where nature does the heavy lifting. Everything begins with a simple handful of rice. There is no need for test tubes, no need for sterile laboratories. You only need to walk to your pantry, take a clean glass jar, and gather a small handful of rice. Every day, white rice or cheap broken rice will do perfectly as long as it is raw and uncooked. Pour in clean water and massage the grains thoroughly with your hands. Wash them until the crystal clear water turns a milky, cloudy white. That very liquid, the same water we mindlessly pour down the drain every day, is, under a microscopic lens, an absolute biological superbait. It is densely packed with complex carbohydrates and soluble starches, creating an irresistible royal banquet for countless wild microorganisms. In the very moment you draw your next breath, the air around you holds billions of free-floating microbial spores. When you strain this precious, starchy water into a wide-mouthed jar and cover it loosely with a piece of breathable cheesecloth or a thin paper towel, just enough to keep out the flies while allowing the air to circulate, you are setting a flawless ecological trap. Tuck this jar away in a dark, warm, and quiet corner, like the space beneath your kitchen sink, and simply forget about it. Over the next few days, the indigenous microbes drifting in the air will catch the scent of the starch and gracefully fall into the liquid. They will begin to multiply exponentially, ravenously devouring the carbohydrates. A few days later, when you open the cupboard, you will be greeted by a very distinct aroma. It is not the foul stench of rot, but a bright, earthy sourness, evoking the deep fragrance of yeast and the scent of the forest floor just after a heavy rain. The initially cloudy water will have stratified, the starchy sediment resting at the bottom, a murky liquid layer in the middle, and floating on the surface, a delicate, fragile microbial pellicle. You have just harvested your very first batch of wild microbes. But these are merely a chaotic gathering of raw recruits. To forge an elite, razor-sharp battalion capable of dismantling leaves as rigid as steel, we must introduce a harsh crucible. Prepare a larger glass vessel. Carefully extract one part of the middle liquid layer from your fermented rice water and pour it into the jar. Then add 10 parts of whole, unpasteurized milk. Yes, 10 parts milk to 1 part rice water. This combination is an absolute masterpiece of biological filtration. The milk, with its massive concentration of lactose, proteins, and rich fats, acts as an arena of survival. When you pour the milk in, you are triggering a highly selective microbial explosion. Among the millions of assorted miscellaneous bacteria, there is only one specific strain that possesses the sheer fortitude to survive and thrive in this dense dairy environment: lactic acid bacteria, or LAB. They are nature's biological harvesters, born to shred through unyielding carbon bonds. They will fiercely consume the lactose in the milk, simultaneously secreting lactic acid that drops the pH of the solution to an incredibly low level. This highly acidic environment instantly smothers and eradicates all other weak, competing, or harmful bacteria and molds. Rest the lid loosely on the jar, return it to the dark, and let the silence do its work for about a week. When the time is right, bring the jar back into the light and you will witness a breathtaking transformation. Floating at the very top are the naturally coagulated milk curds, densely nutritious, with a texture akin to traditional rustic cheese. This curd is a magnificent supplemental feed for homestead livestock like chickens, or it can be buried directly into your garden beds to build rich humus. As for that golden, translucent whey left behind, carefully strain it through a fine cloth and pour it into a clean bottle. You are now holding an army of billions of lactic acid bacteria at their absolute prime. But a ravenous army without rations will quickly perish. The secret to extending their lifespan across many months lies in an exquisitely clever physiological deception. Measure the volume of the golden whey you have harvested and dissolve an equal volume of dark brown sugar or rich molasses into it. This colossal influx of sugar causes a sudden, massive spike in osmotic pressure, drawing all the moisture out from around the bacterial cells. In sheer self-defense, they instantly halt all metabolic functions. They forge an impenetrable protective shield around themselves and sink into a profound, deep dormancy. This viscous, syrupy elixir, carrying the faint, sweet scent of molasses, can now rest patiently on the shelf of your root cellar or pantry for months on end without losing an ounce of its potency. It is like a masterfully forged blade resting quietly in its sheath, awaiting the exact moment to be drawn and join the natural cycles of rebirth. And now is the time to bring this art into practice. Never pour this heavily concentrated serum directly onto your garden waste. The overwhelming concentration of sugar will leave the bacteria permanently locked in dormancy or kill them entirely from environmental shock. They require a gentle, graceful awakening. Take precisely 1 tablespoon of this concentrated microbial serum and dissolve it into a gallon of clean water. Remember, always use pure rainwater or tap water that has been left open overnight to allow the chlorine to evaporate. Or chlorine is a lethal poison to the microscopic world. This 1,000-fold dilution is an intentional mechanical shock. It shatters their deep slumber, signaling to billions of bacteria that the feast is finally ready. Carry this bucket of awakened microbial water out to the backyard, and using a watering can, deeply drench your pile of dry leaves. If the mound is too thick, rake it out and water it layer by layer, ensuring every single leaf is cloaked in a damp, microscopic embrace. Moisture is the key, but a waterlogged pile is a disaster. You want the leaves to hold the moisture level of a tightly wrung-out sponge, just enough for the microbes to travel freely and tear through those rigid lignin bonds. Once the watering is complete, use a dark, heavy tarp or a thick blanket of straw to completely cover the pile. This covering serves two vital, life-saving purposes. It blocks the sun's ultraviolet rays from slaughtering the bacteria, and it acts as an incubator, fiercely locking in the moisture and the immense heat generated from the decomposition process. Just a few days later, when you pull back that cover and thrust your hand deep into the heart of the compost pile, you will feel an intense, radiating heat. That warmth is not magic. It is the physical, thermodynamic heat born from a massive population explosion of invisible entities frantically shattering carbon bonds. This intense heat will serve to cook off weed seeds and severely weaken any lingering pathogens. The once rigid, unyielding leaves will quickly soften, collapse, and turn the glossy, rich black of pure humus. The scent will have transformed into the profound, earthy fragrance of an ancient forest floor. You are no longer a passive gardener, laboring exhaustively against the tide of decay. You have become a quiet conductor, raising your baton to direct creation's most majestic and beautiful symphony of decomposition, right in your own backyard. Carry this magnificent humus and spread it beneath your trees. Till it into your vegetable beds, and silently watch as the roots eagerly reach out to receive it. The journey of learning to truly understand nature is never a path with an end. Rejecting the branded bottles of industrial chemicals to forge life with your own hands from nothing but a handful of rice and a splash of milk is not just a tale of agriculture, it is a philosophy of living. If the stillness and the profound power of nature in this story have offered you a fresh perspective, please gently press the like button and subscribe to the channel. Do not forget to leave your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Every tale you share, every plant you save using these humble methods contributes to striking a small match to warm Mother Earth once again. Let us continue to sow the seeds of understanding together, and I will see you on our next journey of healing.